Hercules Swordsman here in the first video from the new year. The date is January the 2nd, 2024. I'm excited. I hope you're excited. Thanks to my sponsors, first and foremost. But let's dig in. Markets, who cares? Stocks down a bit. Gold, silver, something. Crypto up. Anyway, so in the last video, or one of the latest videos, I talked about the tendency that we should always remember for every new year that companies typically prefer to hold out good news for the new year, which is kind of like a mega Monday. Because you can tell, you know it, people want to reinvent themselves. People are optimistic about the future. Maybe, there's a New Year's resolution. This year I'll stop smoking, which would be a positive thing. This year I'll, get in shape. That's why typically the gyms are crammed after New Year. Unfortunately, if I remember correctly, people tend to only keep going to the gym if they don't have a habit of doing that as a New Year's resolution for only 3 weeks. That's the way it goes, and that's also, and I've pointed this out before, everybody knows how to get in shape. It's just that almost nobody has the discipline and willpower to really stick it out, and you'll get the results you deserve, and that's also the same for markets. If you can't if the bear market is too long for you, even it's just getting more and more obvious what you should do. If something is cheap, gets cheaper for longer, that just means it's a better buy, a bigger buy, by definition, if you're a value investor. If something was trading at 6 PE, goes down to 4p, should you sell that simply because 6 went to 4? No, you should obviously be buying even more because that's an even cheaper opportunity. You're getting even more assets for your money. That's the difference. Can you stick it out as a value investor, or will you be, as most people, if the bear hasn't turned into a bull, an obvious bull within 2-3 years, then it's a sell. All of a sudden, it's like, well, every single day the bear market continues, you're one day closer to the bull market by definition, starting off at a cheaper price as well. Just, from a compounded perspective, it's a buy that just gets exponentially better, meaning a sell becomes exponentially worse, and despite that, everybody ends up selling. But I think it's a very interesting analog anyway. And first off, I just want to show this. Nobody can really confirm if that's true or not, but probably it's like 97% of day traders lose money. I don't think you should go with trading. Day trading is like, first of all, it's obviously very hard. And the interesting thing is, what do we lack in, I was going to say Western society especially? It's like patience. For every year we want more and more instant gratification. We want, there's social media, there's, Twitter. We can update the Twitter feed every 3 seconds or whatever. We want something to react to all the time. We've never probably been as impatient as now. And I think that shows up in the markets, and day trading is obviously something that I think attracts a lot of people, because the idea is like, I can be active every single day, I can make money every single day, it's like a job, but I'm trading and I'm gonna look cool, I'm gonna be sitting there with my 4 screens and charts all over the place. People will see me as sophisticated once they see my setup or whatever. And it's, in reality, it's super hard because the market is so chaotic in the short term, especially within a day, and everybody's trying to do that. And almost nobody, obviously, I think, can do that. Whereas, like, what I do, sit in a sucky bear market for 3 years since the last high, do nothing else but try to buy the cheapest stocks there is, or the one with, best risk reward, at least with, growth profile, or value play, whatever. It's like you're trying to get the most for your money. That's the only focus. If it's a bull, if it's a bear, doesn't really matter. You're trying to just buy something that you think is cheap or has a chance of looking really cheap sometime in the future. That's it. I don't care if it's a bull, I don't care if it's a bear. I buy the cheapest stuff I can find. If we end up going into a bear, I'm probably gonna, lose money or be neutral, whatever, depending on how good cases there are, and obviously how, lucky you are. I mean, we're trying to obviously diversify away the luck component, meaning yes, we can know something is a high risk play, but if we own enough high risk plays and we are somewhat right on the quality of the high risk bets, I mean, one or few of them might pay off, and they'll go up. So I mean, yes, we're at least planning to, I mean, luck, I would say, is more like, yeah, you go all in on one high risk high reward story, and either it's gonna be a success or not. I mean, most of the time it's not going to be a success. But if you know you're taking risk, and you're in 10, 20 different high risk, high reward stories, one shouldn't perhaps see it as being lucky if one or two or more actually work out and they pay for all the others. That was part of the plan. That you shouldn't rely on luck per se. You should, rely on the balance of probabilities, and I don't count that as luck, even though it's gonna look like luck in the specific cases that work out, and look like bad luck in the cases that doesn't work out. But in reality, we know we shouldn't win on every single high risk high reward bet. That would be extremely lucky. Anyway, just a reminder, in my opinion, that trading, probably, especially day trading, probably been never more crowded than it is now. I think it's like a siren song, the idea that you can be active every single day and you can make money every single day, etc., etc. So you never have to suffer these horrible bear markets or look stupid for an extended period of time, etc. But still, I mean, if 97% lose money, I mean, that's not even underperforming an index. That's like losing money. So there's 3% left. How many of them do you think actually make a good living on it? I mean, it's just so rare, I would say, and it's probably stressful as hell. I don't like it at all. Anyway, I'm probably gonna talk about that more some other day. Oh yeah. So some news. Again, like I said last time, we should be on the lookout right now for companies putting out news releases in the new year, because if they had positive news to report, let's say in the last 2 months or so, given we were in tax loss selling season, given the sentiment was shit, given that people were preparing for the holidays, partially because markets were shit. If companies had the opportunity, they would try to delay good news until the new year. And wouldn't you know it, we're starting to see some of this good news. And it's not necessarily it has to happen on the first day. I mean, some obviously have. So we get a news release from Condor, not about Pucamayo, but that Condor Resources completes option and joint venture agreement on its Cobra copper gold project. Okay, I mean, joint venture agreement, no more details. Then we learn it's Teck Resources. Teck is a $29, almost $30 billion company, which wants to take a stab at Cobra. And I would say Cobra is one of the most textbook copper porphyry targets I've ever seen. Here you have soil geochemistry for copper. I think I think they've hit up to percent copper in some places. I mean, these are really high numbers. This is ppm, not pp. B, which is typical for gold. So it's like there's obviously something. There's smoke up here. Smoke down here, and you can see some, 2,700. Up here you're up to like 10, 11,000, 19,000, 17,000, 5.7, 5.7, 4. So there's something happening here. You can see the scale bar here. I mean, this is 400 meters. That's pretty large. And the geophysics. So here you have a donut kind of shape. Up here you have more, I guess, homogeneous. And here you can see CU ranges up to 1.8%. CU on surface up to 1.9%. That's, quite high grade. But here you see the donut shape, at least for this target and this target. So these are two distinct targets because porphyries tend to show up as in clusters. So let's see line 13 here, cross section. I mean, this is just, here you have basically what they believe. I mean, they've labeled what they believe it is. So a typical skarn mineralization surrounding a porphyry. I mean, you have a magnetic susceptibility section. So very magnetic, forms a shell, which is probably the skarn mineralization. All of a sudden, in the middle, you have a low, surrounded by a high. So this is kind of textbook copper porphyry geophysical signature. It's obvious this looks like a shell of this that's low magnetism. So you have a mag low surrounded by a mag high, which rhymes with a skarn shell forming around a porphyry where I guess the magnetite or whatever has been obliterated, or at least, traveled out into the skarn, let's say. So this is one of the most slam dunk porphyry drill targets I've ever seen. I mean, you can see companies where, like, they do some geophysics, it's very complex or scrambled, nothing too clear. Here you have it all. It's like high soil samples in two targets, and again the donut shaped shell here, and here you got something else to the northwest, I guess, but there's very high soil samples there, so something's going on there as well. And then you have this. So I mean, put in a few holes here. I mean, you will probably immediately know if it's a mineralized porphyry or not. And I mean, I'm not saying you're gonna hit a bullseye intercept, but it's like this is kind of a walk-up drill target by the looks of it. And they are asking for permission to, let's see here. And this is also, I mean, remember what we said about in the Pucamayo drill update. There was no quote. All of a sudden here we have a quote. I mean, which just confirms the point of what a poker face they had in the last news release, which is interesting. Welcome Tech and their technical expertise. Again, it's like that's going to be a value add as well. And there's been, rumors that there's been more than one parties interested, and I mean, this is one of the larger companies around, the 30 billion. Absolutely love that. And of course, it's like, okay, if you're a $30 billion market cap, what kind of blue sky potential do you want to see here? It's like, what does tech think this could be? I don't know, but like 1 billion minimum, and again, could be. And the earning agreement is such that Condor would keep 25% of it, which would be, 250 million. If it's worth $1 billion, it could, I mean, they're probably more interested in like 2, 3, 4 billion targets, tier 2, tier 1 type of deposits. But let's just, I mean, it's impossible to know what the chance of success here. Does this look like a copper porphyry? Absolutely. Will it end up being a tier 2 or tier 1 discovery worth billions of dollars? That we don't know. We know what Condor is priced at, which is 59 million Canadian, which is supposed to cover the implied value of all their 12 projects, including Pucamayo and including Cobra Orco. So how much is priced in for Cobra Orco? Maybe not a lot. like I made a point, I think maybe even Condor would be trading around this, maybe at 50 million if they had only Pucamayo. So let's just say that we're getting diversified to the upside, and as such we also get a bit less risky and more potential news flow coming up, and another shot at a major discovery. Whereas in Pucamayo, I mean, there's no earning or joint venture. I guess Ever Marquez, I think he owns 15% of it though. But still, let's call it like, I mean, we own that project fully. And someone pointed out that, who was it? I think it was D-Log for, I can't find the comment now, I have to update it. But I think his point was, which makes sense, again, we're trying to read the hands of the management team, which was something along the lines of, if they think Pucamayo will be a bust, I mean, there's nothing at Pucamayo, they won't find something to even follow up on, there is no hope for Pucamayo. Again, it's like it's a totally barren system, there's nothing there. Would they JV away their, one of their other flagship projects in that case? Maybe they would. I mean, to play the devil's advocate, maybe they're like, okay, we don't think Pucamayo will amount to anything, we don't think we hit anything, we don't think we have one discovery hole, not a single good hole coming out of Pucamayo, so that's going to be dead and buried after these first 9 holes. Would they JV away one of their best looking, most obvious drill targets? That's a question. They could, again, if they get very risk averse all of a sudden, and it's like, we better scramble to get a deal going, so we have a shot after Pucamayo drills 100% dusters and there's no hope of discovery there. But at the same time, like this person was pointing out, if you thought you're onto something at Pucamayo, and you kind of think that, hey, we're going to focus our money at Pucamayo, but we have this huge portfolio of projects, which we want to drill, but we can't really with the manpower, or our money's going into Pucamayo and we want to get the ball rolling here, etc. Might as well take in a $30 billion company so they can fund this and use their, geoscientists to help explore and drill targeting or whatever. Maybe they will even be the operators. I don't remember if it was said if they would be the operators. So it kind of jives. I mean, you could say, well, they're doing this because they get very scared that Pucamayo looks so bad that there's no hope of finding anything there, that they're kind of branching out and, climbing back into their shell, letting other people fund the, take the risk, if you know what I mean, and fund exploration. Sure, I mean, that's one way to go about it. But at the same time, it's like, if you think you're onto something at Pucamayo, that there might be a discovery hole, and you think you'll be busy there, that you'll, do more drilling or whatever, would you rather, would you pause the rest of the portfolio, or would you strike when you can have when you have a 30 billion market cap company knocking on your door wanting to do work here? I think that also fits. And again, like I did in the big rant last time, there's not too many clues that fit with the management team believing they will only drill dusters, or at least that there is no hope for Pucamayo to become something. So I'm gonna steer on the. I'm biased, of course, but I can see how it fits with. Okay, they believe they will be busy with their wholly owned project Pucamayo, and they still want to unlock the rest of the portfolio. Might as well bring in experts from tech who will also fund it, and we have a shot of having a separate discovery as well. So net positive, obviously, for Condor. good from a risk perspective, because now there is a, I mean, I don't know when they will drill this, but let's say they drill this within 6 months or whatever. Even if Pucamay was a bust, you have a shot at a company maker here, because tech wouldn't get interested if they didn't see, 1, 2, 3+ billion potential here. And I'm saying potential. Maybe that potential is 10%. Still, might be more than that. I don't know. Nobody knows. That's the thing. But that they wouldn't even do this if they didn't think there was a chance in hell that this would end up being a tech type discovery. And again, it's like you don't really see too often textbook everything is lining up here. I mean, there might be nothing at depth and whatever, it just looks good, but this should be a target that's pretty easy to drill test. And like porphyries, I mean, you've seen Hercules Silver, and we'll get to that soon. Things can change quickly when it's big disseminated targets. So we don't know. It's like within 12 months we might have have a confirmed discovery at both of these, or none of these, or one of these. At least it's obviously a net positive, brings more news flow, validation for this to be a tier 2, tier 1 type copper porphyry target, as evidenced by who gets involved. Yeah, so good. Then we have Hercules Silver, which also put out a news release on this very day. And I said that as well. It's like in the last video that, okay, I'm waiting, we're waiting for Hercules. I mean, they should be getting close to having some kind of update. So this is going to be an interesting one, I think, because at face value, I haven't done the CU equivalent of 148 ppm moly. Do they have that? Okay, no, they don't have equivalent. So I'm not sure how much, this, and I mean 4.4 grams per ounce silver isn't that much, but 148 ppm molybdenum might, I don't know how much it adds to the CU equivalence. But it's like it's not a barn burner, if you know what I mean. It is not. It's not. 600 meters of 0.7% CU equivalent. But here's the thing. So okay, my prediction is, I think, and I might be wrong, I think assay flippers will sell. I think there's gonna be pent up selling. Because people just assumed that they would make money on the first news release. But again, like I've said before, that's the short-term traders, right? I mean, they are the ones we typically want to take advantage of. Either sell or buy from. And everything is relative in this case. So a lot of people will not really, people don't really care about the discovery as much as just they thought they were gonna make a quick buck. Because if you read the news release, first of all, it's partial assays from, where is it? Assays for the remainder of Hercules 21 and Hercules 26, which also intersected porphyry copper mineralization, remain pending. So these are partial assays, open in multiple directions, and thus far has only been tested within the 2022 IP survey area. And that was, I mean, that's the thing. These holes are from the blind campaign, kinda, if you know what I mean. Same as the first whammer of a hole, total surprise. And then they, immediately drilled a couple of new holes. That was before the new IP, before Barrick got involved, etc., etc. So we should assume that, it's basically by default, that they didn't have much information to go by. They just put in a few holes after they, got the first one that was really good looking. Hercules 21 tested approximately 800 meters of vertical extent below the silver system. All holes ended in mineralization. That's a clue. Okay, all holes ended in mineralization. A new property-wide deep penetrating IP survey, yada yada, demonstrates that the 2022 anomaly represents just a small part of a much larger 4-kilometer long potentially zoned system which largely remains to be tested. Finally, physical inversions remain pending. I mean, that's going to help their targeting. They're going to have a much better blueprint how this system looks, because, I mean, even the first hole that was really encouraging, that is still believed to be in the halo of something. And the other holes that follow that are as reported in this, they were probably also drilled in the halo, which we're going to get to. IP reveals potential for a much larger zone system than was previously understood. Mineralization remains open for expansion in multiple directions. So here you see the holes. I mean, if you look at the property map, I don't think they have no, they don't have the whole property map. But this is pretty much just a small footprint of the overall potential. They even staked, I think. Where did they put that? Down here below, I think. Where was that? Additional staking. The company has also engaged... And they staked an additional 570 load mining claims to the north of the property, securing a key extension of the new 3D IP anomaly. So they're already making moves based on the IP survey, which they didn't have when they drilled these holes. And the funny thing, this was the best hole, this was the first reported holes, then they drilled these. Okay. And here you can see increasing grade. I mean, this is, I mean, they don't have too much information, obviously, but so the belief is, okay, increasing grade. And they said as much. That was the interesting part. I assumed that the center would be to the right, but they said quite early on, we believe this has a source, this good hole is sourced from somewhere in the west, maybe closer to where 26 is, has been drilled or is being drilled or whatever. But you see, these holes are to the right, to the east. And here you can see, I mean, that's what they believe, increasing grade. This is hole 8. Where's that? Hole 8. So this is here. So they believe it's getting better this direction. And the same goes for the other ones who are drilled, you know, relatively close to hole 5. 161 meters of 0.45. But here they had 185 meters of 0.84. So again, they believe that, I mean, given the kind of limited info they have so far, but it appears that this had the highest grade, and that means that, okay, maybe the source for this mineralization is coming from this way, and they tested it on the, you know, farther away from the core of the system, let's say. So okay, and there's a bunch of more news in here. So what can we say, or what do we know? We know this was a really good hole. We know they stated quite early on that they believed the source of this mineralization is coming from the west. And I guess they kind of made that observation while stepping out to the east and seeing that it's, you know, looks to be getting farther and farther from the higher grades. And we know they have they haven't published it yet, but they have done a massive IP survey. And the system looks to be like 4 kilometers long. I mean, this is 450 meters scale bar. So what can we say? Obviously that is super early. I think Barrick saw the core of these drill holes, and they might have an idea. It's like, yeah, you know, probably not going to be as rich as this hole. But they invested anyway, obviously. And they even staked more ground to the north. And this is already a large land package. So the IP anomaly, which they didn't, the new IP anomaly, which they didn't have when they did this, because this was drilled based on the sliver of the, you know, the IP anomaly sliver they had in the limited 2020 IP survey. So question here. Okay, what do you think, again, the market might do if they see, well, these aren't barn burner holes. This isn't a barn burner hole. Will people sell on that? I wouldn't be too surprised. But okay, let's think about, again, the big picture, the longer term. Because you can see in every discovery story, typically, there's like the Great Bears, the snow lines, whatever. They had dips up to 30-40% from the tops. I mean, we've already dipped a bit. Because the market is relative and short term. So it's going to react to every single news item. But what we want to do, in my opinion, is to compare the current price, whatever we're buying, to what do we think this project and the news flow is going to be for the next 12 months. Let's say Condor sells off today because people see, well, these results weren't, barn burns. They weren't that great. Oh, I guess the story's over. But when you think about the context, okay, they're staking even more. This was pretty much kind of blind drilling. They think they know which way the mineralization will get better. So let's fast forward 6 months. Do we think they're gonna be drilling this direction, which they believe is closer to the actual porphyry core? I believe so. Will they drill other places that show up on the new extensive IP anomaly that's shown a target up to 4 kilometers? I think so. We're gonna get more, we have partial assays so far, we're gonna get more assays. Yada yada. So far, they have tested a small footprint, what appears to be a very large porphyry system, and they note this a few times. I think Barrick had an idea already what these semi-blind holes would run, and they thought that we want to be in this story. So I think this might end up, and there's no guarantee they will make end up making a tier 2 or tier 1 or world-class discovery here. But the short-term flippers, traders, I mean, they are typically the ones we want to take advantage of, because it's not the smart money that buys for one news release and always think, well, I'm gonna get rich when they release the news releases. I mean, that's like, the day traders. That's kind of that style of investing, I would say. Because if you read the news release, you know that, okay, these were the first stabs. Now they have a much better understanding, with the help of these first stabs, which way they believe the source is located. And potential other sources, or even better parts of the system. We don't know what the IP anomaly, how it looks. We just know that the CEO said that he thinks that was the eye-opener, probably was that for Barrick as well. And we have no idea if this was, with the new IP anomaly in hand, if these holes look like way out of place, if you know what I mean. Maybe there's, you see a big gravity low here or something, and it's like obvious in hindsight that, okay, yeah, we drilled the wrong way. We should have been drilling this way, because I thought this way would be the good way, but they pretty early on said that, no, actually we think that, because there's a lot of copper anomalism to the east, but I thought it's actually the source of at least this mineralization is this way. And there might be other porphyry, since they can show up as clusters as well. So I'm going to be watching what happens today, because I wouldn't be too surprised if we get a negative reaction today. Bashers come in. I mean, there's a lot of people that missed their run in Hercules, and they obviously, like most people, they want to see it fail. They want to wipe away the smirks of anyone that's, so far has paper profits on Hercules, etc., etc. So they want it to go down. Maybe it goes down a lot, I don't know. But the important thing here is that this is super early stage. It's kind of the same with Condor. It's like we don't know what the Pucamayo drilling is gonna come up with. But like there might be some people who expect them to drill straight into, feeder type mineralization on the first 9 holes. Even though they tested the porphyry targets as well, so it's really, 6 holes. They tested a main high sulfidation target. So let's say at Pucamayo they actually hit 1 or 2 pretty good holes, like 150 meters or 0.5 grams per ton or something. That's what I really like to see. And then you kind of have, this is a discovery, but it's not going to be necessarily barn burner assays. But what it signifies is that, there is a mineralized blanket here. So we're onto something. It might not be, or it might be whatever, but it's like, this has a shot of becoming, 2-3 million ounces or 1.5 grams per ton or something, and that could be, a very good mine. And with the blue sky being open-ended, that who knows, maybe it's 5 to 10 million ounces AU equivalent of 1.5 grams per ton or something, because that's the thing. Even P Arena, yes, when they drilled into some of the feeder structures, they had barn burner holes, but the average resource grade was like, I think, 2 grams per ton. And some of the other large ones, they're like 1.3 grams per ton and stuff like that. It's because it's near surface, a lot of it oxidized. That's how you make a lot of money. P Arena was an absolute cash cow for Barrick Gold at 2 grams per ton or whatever it was. Absolute cash cow, world-class mine. They didn't need like 9 grams per ton of high sulfidation like they hit in the feeder. It's not going to be a 9 gram per ton blanket, etc. They might hit feeders and they might be higher grade, but it's like the bulk of it is not going to be feeder grade anyway. So that's what I'm saying. It's like, again, the context is very important. Because there's for sure going to be, I think today, people who, you can see how many people are, let's see how many actually are in the channel. 134 people. Here we already have a sell. Here we have some open at 75. Again, it's like, piling on, trying to get. Here we have, again, this is gonna, snowball, or this is how this sector works. If something goes down, that's gonna get people to sell more, which is gonna make even more people say that everyone else should sell. And here you have what happens if Barrick dumps the stock. Again, if we're a bit smart about it, we kind of know Barrick already saw the core. Let's say there was a lot of bornite here, and they saw less bornite here, whatever. They are after a tier 1 discovery. Philo Mining didn't have Philo type hits everywhere in their system, even after having put, I don't know how many holes they have. They hit lower grade stuff. Some places there is not just a lot of mineralization. That's knowing where the kind of the good zones are after having drilled maybe hundreds of holes. This is super early from a small footprint in a potentially very large system. This doesn't say much more other than, the one of the porphyry cores is not at least here to depth of 438 meters or whatever. It might be down here, it might, I don't know, deeper over here, it might be up there where they're staking more. But again, just look how people act and what happens when a stock that is done well, if that appears to be stumbling even for a split second, every expert, quote expert here, is gonna throw in their 2 cents. Almost nobody in this entire chat room probably has a good track record in junior investing. But that doesn't stop people from throwing in their 2 cents. I mean, you see this in every single kind of high flyer. Everybody that was not on board of it or part of it, they want to see it fail. Because every day they see a stock that's done well and they weren't a part of it, they feel dumb. So just know that. So that's what I'm talking about. This is why we're going to have a short-term reaction, and it's going to get amplified by how people work when it comes to money and ego and missing out and all of that. And the negative reaction is going to feed into the narrative. And that's why people end up selling the depths of a bear market, because it can never get too low when the emotions are in play. So I'm going to be looking here to see, it's like in my book, this is just the beginning of something that could be very large. And depending on the reaction today, I mean, I've taken profits recently. Depending on the reaction today, I might add some, because sooner or later, because it's so obvious that this story is pretty much, I would say, fully intact, this is going to find a bottom one day, and then it's going to start to go up again, and then the narrative is going to change again. Because when the price goes up, people are going to immediately feel like, well, there's someone who says this story isn't over, and then people are going to remind themselves like, right, I mean, they might hit in the next 10 holes, they might hit in the next 20, maybe we get the IP survey that makes people dream, and if it goes up a bit on that, this is going to go back to the narrative that was here. That's just how it works. And this is the stuff people should learn and understand. We are here to take advantage of the short-sighted and emotional, and we want to front run changes in emotions. For better or for worse, most people will not make any money in this sector. But you can kind of play the tape forward. So before I looked at the forum, I said what how the forum would look. Okay, sure, it's not rocket science, but it's like, you see, it's like, here's actually someone that's he understands what's kind of going on. It's like he knows it's not over. He missed the boat at 30 cents, according to him. Looking close for an entry. It's like, what if Eric dumps the stock? I mean, it's just a ridiculous thing, but that doesn't stop people from saying it, because you're trying to sow seeds of doubt. Yeah. Even critical investor is in. I think is pretty knowledgeable, but I don't know if he. I mean, I was gonna say gets the point, because in my opinion, aims for the best targets first. I mean, the first hole that hit good mineralization, they just drilled that because it was closest to the silver mineralization. So they aimed for the most convenient area to test and just simply hit it, and then they just stepped out to the east, and they pretty quickly said, well, we believe, I guess that based on what they were seeing here, that it's probably, it looks like the mineralization is better this way instead. So in my book, to round up, there's no way this entire this huge target area gets killed by 3 partial holes. It's going to feel like that when if we get some selling, everybody's going to pile on, because again, there's nothing more popular than, you're probably going to see it on Twitter as well. You know how this works. On the way up, people don't talk about it if they're not on board, but if something has gone up and they missed it and it turns down, they will let people know that it's going down. That's just human psychology. And the thing is, again, we're trying to, like in poker, we're trying to think about the we've seen the flop. We're trying to think about the turn and river, etc. That okay, is it actually that bad? If it's not that bad, what are the next 10 holes gonna show? How are people gonna act? How are people gonna think? What is gonna happen if, let's say, we have a kind of a flush, it bottoms, starts to climb. They put out the IP survey, and it might be obvious at that point. It's like, yeah, it's, you have a bullseye to the west, maybe something like that. That's gonna get people excited. Maybe they show why they staked ground to the north, because we haven't seen the evidence of that. They just staked to the north, probably guided by Barrick. I mean, obviously they must have had discussions with Barrick. So what are they seeing all the way to the north that makes them stake even more ground? That's the kind of stuff. It's hard to kill a northern target if you drill a kilometer away from it. So what happens if, okay, they announce, oh, we're getting 3 drill rigs, or how many they have, I don't know. It's like, we're gonna be, they get out the IP survey, because I don't think they even, have they made any plans yet? I'm trying to figure out if they, Hercules is working with Barrick's geophysical team to interpret the data in context with the 2023 drilling and generate the best possible drill targets for the next phase of drilling. So they haven't even announced that. So we can fast forward a bit. Okay, what happens when they announce that? Because they're all up in arms about the IP anomaly, and we haven't even seen that yet. So let's say they put out a news release in, I don't know when. It was like marking 3 distinct target areas, and it looks like, well, looks like a whopper of a anomaly. I mean, the 2020, I think it's the 2020 IP anomaly. I mean, you had that big, like, wedge-shaped or dog bone-shaped IP anomaly. We have no idea how this new one is going to look. But it's that one that the CEO sounded very excited about, and we haven't even seen that yet. So who knows what's going to come up with that? We have to assume that Barrick has seen that. Again, my assumption is that Barrick saw the core of all these holes, and that these were not guided by the new IP anomaly, which the CEO was very excited about. And I assume Barrick is also excited about. So, do we know this is going to be a world-class discovery? Absolutely not. I mean, is it cheap? Now, let's say it goes down to 240 million or whatever, or 250. I have no idea what's going to happen. But you can bet that this story isn't over, and that means, okay, let's say it goes down to 250 million or whatever. All of a sudden, okay, you're paying 250 million, and let's say that it becomes obvious that this story is still wide open, which I think it certainly is. All of a sudden, okay, from 250, if it ends up being, let's say the IP anomaly comes out, you see a huge target, you see obvious drill targets, you see the drill plan, yada yada yada. And it's like, okay, then people will start to think again. It's like, oh right, I mean, it's sold off, but hey, this is still early days, and now it's at 250 million. It's like, if this ends up being a discovery, I'm paying 1/10 for what it could be, and all of that. And what could happen with one drill hole. So yeah, in my opinion, who knows? Maybe it ran a bit too far, but the main point is that short term everything is relative. So I wouldn't be surprised if this goes. The reaction looks larger than warranted, given given we got partial holes, let's say. That's just my guess, not 100% sure. But again, my context is that there's a lot of information that Barrick and the company has, which we haven't seen yet. I think Barrick had an idea of how these cores look, because I assume you can actually at least do a XRF gun kind of thing and have an idea what the copper grades are. I'm not 100% sure that's the case, but I think so. Where's 11? Here's 11, okay. And here you have 3,000 grams per ton silver popping up. Here, this is a pretty robust intercept. 0.43 copper and 70 grams per ton silver over 63 meters. I mean, that's like what? And molybdenum. I mean, I don't know exact gold silver ratio, but it's like this is not too far off from 1 gram per ton AU equivalents plus the copper. So that's like 63 grams per ton of, I don't know, 1.2 grams per ton gold, something like that. I mean, certainly, you would mine that in bulk. Yeah, so early days is my thing, but this is gonna be interesting. I mean, I'm probably gonna take a paper loss in Hercules today, maybe a big one, but that's not the point. Again, we're looking for the big moves, right? We're looking for the big moves. We're not trying to be a day trader to get every news release correct, because the thing is, if this goes down, we have a new price. Okay, we have a new price we're paying for all the potential future of Hercules Silver. From that, if that's a lower price and this ends up being a world-class discovery down the line, all of a sudden, we're obviously going to be thankful for getting in at a cheaper price if we decide to add. So that's the thing. But in it's the short-term fluctuations and volatility where we take advantage. Some juniors go too high, some juniors go too low based on one news release, etc. And we want to be thinking, how are the next 10 news releases going to look like? How are the next 20, 30, 40? When they drill this for 1 or 2 campaigns or whatever, it's like, how is it going to look like? What could it look like? What are the probabilities that it would look like? Whatever. How much am I paying for that future right now? What kind of chance of success do I need to see? Do I need to be 100% convinced this is going to turn into a world-class discovery? Nope. We're a tier 2 discovery or something like that. It's like, how much do I need? Maybe 20%. I mean, is that out of the question? And there's an option to be better than that. Yeah. So I like always. I'm not after precision. I think that's what you need in day trading and all of that. There's no time saving you, whatever. The short-term market reaction is the reaction. That's what you're doing with day trading. It's not like a long-term investor where it's like, well, I'm taking advantage of all the flippers who are going to sell regardless of what the news was going to be. If this was good news, if they drilled a barn burner hole, there will still be people who are going to sell that, because that was the plan all along. Play every single catalyst, every single news release. And in this case, you have them, and you have people probably who are like, well, I was expecting a barn burner, otherwise this store is probably cooked, so they're gonna sell. And that's gonna stir up a whole shitstorm of people who wants to see Hercules go down. I mean, some probably want to see it go down so that, they can add, but they're not gonna tell you, obviously. And then you have the negative cycle. That's how this sector ends up with everybody selling the lows and buying the highs. Because it just becomes a perfect storm. Price direction influences sentiment, and sentiment exaggerates price direction, which in turn exaggerates the sentiment even more. Well, it's going to be interesting. But I hope, remember this news release, regardless of how Hercules Silver actually ends up, in a year or so. Remember today, this news release, how the forum acted, how people acted, what the result was, how people, how people reacted basically, and then see how that might transform over time. That's like we have a flash, and then let's say a few weeks from here they might put out some other stuff. I mean, they don't need any money. That's the thing as well. They don't need to spin too much because they have the money to do the. I mean, there's gonna be a that you can take to the bank. There's gonna be a follow-up drill campaign here. So that's one I think we should be preparing for when others are today, for example, just reacting to this news release. We should be preparing for what the price might be today and how that relates to our vision of the future news release, how people will react to the news releases people are not even thinking about today, and how it might look if we have a flush. One day the bottom is in, then it starts to go up, and then all of a sudden people will say, right, I mean, this story is not over. Then they come up with a drill plan with the geophysics. People start to dream again. It starts to go head higher, and then people will read into that as people thinking, well, there is a chance for a world-class discovery, and then it's going to go on a somewhat of a tear again. I could see that happening. So I mean, you can theoretically also play. I mean, I took profit, so I didn't have full exposure going into these assays. But you could have sold without taking assay risk. I mean, now of course one probably would want it. It's like, I should have sold everything before they released assays. But that's a hindsight thing. We don't know. We don't have perfect information. What if they were barn burners? We don't know that, so we can't just again assume that the result is saying everything about the quality of the decision to buy, hold, or sell. We just see what happens. We don't see the alternative universes. But again, knowing this, how it might play out just from a sentiment and psychology perspective, is there room for like, okay, well, I think it's going to bottom one day. I think they're going to come out with news in the future that will get people excited again, and I think it's gonna head higher, and I think if it gets running, I think people are gonna whip themselves into a bullish frenzy again, going into the next phase of assay results. And in that case, I could ride that real hype after this let's say disappointment here. When that is transformed to drill hype for campaign 2, I might get a 30-40% return from just a shift in sentiment and front running a bit what the next news releases are going to be, and what people are going to think when the next news releases are going to be, and how they're going to think when this, let's say, makes a short-term bottom, etc. I hope you get something out of this. This was a lengthy rant, and again, I'm biased with both of these stories. None is a banner sponsor, but I'm biased. I own shares of them both. So just some food for thought. Again, we want to learn as much as we can all the time. I hope to be learning, not just from today, what happens in Hercules, for example. In 3 months, what has happened with Hercules, and if we look back, then it's like, what actually happened? Right. I mean, let's say there was a flush, and then it actually bottomed. And when it bottomed, people's sentiment shifted because now it's all of a sudden, well, the sky isn't falling anymore. Why is that? And then it starts to maybe go up, and people are like, right, I mean, they are going to drill more. They're still, I mean, this is a huge system potentially still. And then they put out some IP anomalies like, whoa, obvious targets. Everybody gets into a frenzy again because everybody wants to get rich tomorrow. And this is one of those stories where, I mean, you obviously don't get rich in just one news release, but you get the idea. Quick profits. The idea of quick profits is very alluring. And since this project is not killed, I think that's going to come back again. Anyway, just my 2 cents. Not investing advice. Again, I mean, as always, we want to become better and better. I think I'm evolving every year as an investor speculator in this business. figuring out more and more how people act, how people react, figuring what is noise, figuring out what is noise, what is long term, figuring out, okay, what's the context of the news release. Everybody's going to react to the present look, if you know what I mean, to these assays. But okay, most of the actual information in the news release is about what they think this means for the rest of the project, and they mention the IP and yada yada yada. So it's like there's a lot of this. There's a lot of info in this news release, which is not tied to these assays. Yeah, and I mean, here you have indicating favorable potential for future smelter treatment. I mean, that's good as well. Might be very important. Yeah, newly discovered blind systems. Like they drilled 1, 2, 3, only 3 holes. Okay, it's like 4 holes into this thing. I mean, this is early days still, but again, it's not going to feel like that when you see the reaction today, I think. Yeah, so I'm expecting in short, I'm expecting a sell-off. I'm expecting doomsdayers. And yeah, we're gonna see what the opportunity. Again, we don't try to predict too much. We react to what the prices the market offers us. If we think it gets out of line in one way or the other, there's an opportunity perhaps. Thanks for listening. Bye.